Certainly. Here's a spooky horror story featuring an aged man and a young girl. The Watcher in the Shadows. In a small, forgotten village, there stood an ancient, crumbling house at the end of a lonely road. It was known among the locals as Marlow Manor, named after its last occupant, a reclusive old man who had vanished without a trace years ago. The villagers said the house was cursed, whispering that anyone who ventured inside was never quite the same afterward. One chilly autumn evening, a young girl named Lily, who had recently moved to the village, found herself drawn to the manor. At only 12 years old, Lily was adventurous and curious, traits that often led her into trouble. That day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a shadowy orange glow, she stood before the rusty iron gate of Marlow Manor, clutching her lantern. Her friends had dared her to explore the house alone, claiming that old Marlow still wandered its halls, searching for something he had lost. Lily, determined to prove her bravery, pushed open the gate with a groan that seemed to echo for miles. As she stepped onto the weed-covered path, the wind howled, carrying with it the faint sound of whispers, like voices trapped between worlds. Inside the house, darkness swallowed everything, save for the dim circle of light cast by Lily's lantern. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed for the first time in years. The floors creaked beneath her steps, and the walls seemed to sigh as if they had been holding their breath, waiting for her arrival. Lily explored room after room, each one filled with decaying furniture and broken remnants of a forgotten life. She was beginning to think the stories were just that, stories, when she heard it, a faint, shuffling sound coming from the hallway behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the wind, she whispered to herself, though her heart pounded in her chest. As she continued down a narrow corridor, she came upon a door at the end that was slightly ajar. From within, she could hear a soft, wheezing breath, like someone struggling to breathe. Against her better judgment, Lily pushed the door open, revealing a small room with a single, flickering candle on a dusty table. In the far corner, hunched over like a withered shadow, was an old man with a long, crooked back. His skin was pale, stretched thin over bones that seemed too fragile to support him. His eyes were hollow, black pits that reflected no light. "Who are you?" Lily asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. The old man did not respond. Instead, he slowly turned his head towards her, the movement unnatural, like a puppet on rusted strings. His eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, Lily realized something terrible. This was no ordinary man. His gaze seemed to pierce through her, freezing her in place. He opened his mouth, but instead of words, a cold, hissing whisper filled the air, chilling Lily to her bones. She couldn't understand what he was saying, but she felt the meaning deep in her soul. "You don't belong here." Terrified, she tried to run, but her legs refused to move. The old man's shadow seemed to stretch and grow, consuming the light from her lantern until the room was plunged into darkness. In that blackness, she could hear the sound of shuffling feet growing closer, the old man moving with a speed that should have been impossible for someone his age. Just as he was about to reach her, Lily's lantern flickered back to life. The old man was gone, the room empty once more. Without thinking, she turned and fled the house, never daring to look back. When she burst through the front door and into the cold night air, her friends were waiting, laughing and teasing her for taking so long. But Lily's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. "Did you see him?" she asked, breathless. Her friends exchanged confused glances. "See who?" "The old man," she said. "He was right behind me." One of the boys smirked. "Lily, we were watching the house the whole time. No one went in or out except you." But Lily knew what she had seen, and every night after that, as she tried to sleep, she could hear the faint sound of wheezing breath and shuffling footsteps just outside her window. The villagers say that Marlow Manor is still there, waiting for the next curious soul to wander inside. And they say that if you listen closely on a quiet night, you can hear an old man's laughter echoing from the shadows, forever searching for the young girl who escaped him.